Thanks. It's really a fantastic theme that was chosen for this TEDx. Instructions not included. I don't think there's a theme that better captures the essence of design, what design is about. Design is about venturing into a space where there is no solution yet, where you're going to solve a problem. If there was already a solution and we knew what the answer was, then it's not really design. Design is about solving human problems. You know, our students, when they take classes in design in our center, they often say, this is probably the most difficult class I've ever taken, and the most rewarding and exciting they've ever taken. And they spend nights in our design studio, late nights, weekends, really not to get a grade necessarily, but really because they have a passion for solving real problems. Instructions not included is also a wonderful theme for modernity. I mean, you think about our grandparents, our great-grandparents, 90% of their lives was proscribed by the circumstances of their birth. What they ate, what language they spoke, their values, in some cases who they married. All those things were determined to a large extent by those circumstances. But in the modern era, we are writing our own biographies. We are designing our own path in life. So I'm going to be describing the specific niche within design having to do with healthcare that we do at Johns Hopkins Center for Bioengineering, Innovation, and Design. But I'd also like to tie that to the general theme of how we design our own individual path in life. And some of the principles I think you'll find are similar. So at CBID, or the Center for Bioengineering, Innovation, Design at Johns Hopkins, every year we do about 20 medical device-related, healthcare-related design projects. About half of them are related to emerging markets or very low resource settings, either the bottom of the pyramid or middle of the pyramid. About 100 students every year are involved in our projects, and about 40 clinicians from Johns Hopkins Medicine are involved. We also have fantastic partners such as Johns Hopkins JHU, an affiliate, and also APL is a close affiliate of ours. You know, when you're designing something, it really taps into the roots of who you are. You know, your roots and where you are, the foundations of your personality, they feed everything you do. They don't necessarily prescribe the path you'll take, but they are the foundation for all your decisions. And in my case, my parents were immigrants. My father, a scientist in Houston, and he also a visionary and revolutionary. Here's a picture of him arguing some fine notions about revolution with Fidel Castro. And my mother, a very dedicated mother of 6, raised a family incredibly with frugal resources, very creative in problem solving, and a lot of love. And still, I can only communicate with them now through Skype, but they're very close together. Those are the foundations that I bring to the world of design, the ideas of changing the world, but also being incredibly frugal and practical about it. You know, when I started as an undergraduate, I started actually as a history major. And my father came to Houston. I was at Rice University, and he visited, and he said, "What are you doing, son?" I said, "I'm studying history." And he said, "Well, 2 pieces of advice. First, no one is going to give you their daughter's hand in marriage with a history degree. You know, think of something a little more practical, the typical Asian parent, kind of advice." And the second thing my father said is, understanding history, understanding the world is a wonderful thing. Now, this is a picture from Niagara Falls. I don't know, maybe half the audience has been to Niagara Falls and stood on that pier there. You know, piers are wonderful things. You get to see nature, understand nature, appreciate nature, the beauty of nature, but it doesn't get you across to Canada. What he said is that those are wonderful things, but he encouraged me to study engineering because he said engineering is a bridge between human knowledge and human need. That really appealed to me. On one shore is an ocean of scientific and technical developments, discoveries, knowledge, insights, wisdom. At this institution, Johns Hopkins University, every year over $1 billion is spent on discovering new knowledge and advancing the frontiers of science and technology. But at the other end of that shore, on the other shore, is a universe of suffering, of pain, of problems that are yet to be solved. And that bridge is what really appealed to me, being that bridge. And I think in the modern parlance, that's the core of what design is being that bridge. Now, when people think of design, they often think of this. This is Francois Stark, and he is a designer in Paris, and he designed this, I believe it's a lemon juicer, and looks also like a nice weapon if you're ever attacked. But when you look at this design, it shouts out, "I am a designer." I would say that in French accent. I am a designer. That's what Francois would say. Or Philippe Stark, actually. His name is Philippe. I'm going to get a nasty email from him about that. That's not what we do. The kind of design that we're focused on is this kind of design. The kind of design that someone like Thomas Fogarty does. He's one of the most prolific medical device designers and developers in the world. And this device here is from a company I worked for before I came to Johns Hopkins called Johnson & Johnson. And this device shouts out, "Thank God that someone found a way that you can take my gallbladder out through a little tiny hole and you don't have to make a big incision." This is a laparoscopic cutter, grasper, stapler that can be used to do a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. So that's the kind of message that we do, the kind of design that we do. Design is really about the core of capitalism. I mean, it's about finding a need and filling it. That's what this whole economy is built on. And this is a quote from the wife of Norman Vincent Peale. He wrote a book called the Power of Positive Thinking. In fact, I think his wife was much more concise and witty in the phrase here. I think that's really the core of what we do: finding a need and filling it, and not finding a need and fooling it. And there's been a lot in our healthcare space that doesn't really address the need. So one of the things we try to do is make sure that we're actually solving the right problem in the right way. It's also not about traditional bench to bedside. When I was doing my PhD in biomedical engineering, I spent a lot of time focusing on lasers and finding applications for lasers. And my advisor said, you can work on whatever you want, but it better end up that the solution has something to do with lasers, involved in that. So that's a traditional approach. But that approach is not necessarily what's fitting for design. Really, in this case, the application of laser, I guess, is to do some sort of surgery on James Bond there. But that's not also a very fruitful approach in design. Really, the design is a journey that starts with empathy and passion. These are photographs that our students took. One from a maternity clinic in Nepal and the other that's an actual operating room on an island in India that we visited in the Sundarbans. And it's an island called Bali. There's tigers there, there's a tiger preserve there, and there's about 40,000 people and no doctors. And women have had C-sections and appendectomies in that room right there. And when our students go there and they see that, that's the start of their journey in design. Because when they come back to their design studio here at Johns Hopkins, the images of those babies and that mother and that room stick with them and keeps them here at night and keeps them here on weekends. And that's the source, the wellspring of creativity, is that passion when you really understand what's going on and you really feel that pain and you have an empathy and you say, I want to do something about that. And that leads you to very careful, clear, respectful understanding. So here's a very high-end hospital in India. One of the best, actually it's a very good hospital on par with anything you'll see in the world. And our students are working closely, listening to doctors, taking careful notes to really get their head around the problem in order to create an effective solution. Here's some more photos of our students working. In one scene, it's a clinic that we visited with our Jopaigo colleagues to really get a clear understanding of the nature of the problem and the context in which it exists. Any real solution has multiple themes that have to be addressed, whether you're designing your own path in life or designing a medical device. In the case of medical devices, these are the 4 general themes that we have to pay a lot of attention to: clinical themes, commercial, technical, and organizational. It's no use to have a fantastic technical solution if there's no clear commercialization path to get it to the marketplace. And it's no use to have a deep understanding of the clinical problem unless you also couple that with an effective solution and a pathway to the marketplace and a team and the funding and resources and management to make it. The way we do that is through this spiral iterative model. The idea is that we address each of these themes in each of these iterations. One of the failure modes in designing a solution is when you dive too deeply into one of these and neglect the others. If you spend too much time on the engineering and you haven't spent enough time talking to the clinicians or understanding how you're going to turn that into a real product, you're going to fail. And likewise, the other aspects of it. So we applied this technique, and one of the projects we worked on, I'll give you a few examples, is during the Ebola outbreak, and we thought to ourselves, what can we do? And with our JPIGO colleagues, we worked together to discuss and brainstorm, how can we address this problem? What is some aspect of the problem that we can address? And one thing we hit on is this idea that the frontline healthcare workers, some of the bravest men and women in the world, who are going into the most dangerous situations in the world, are going there with suboptimal equipment and tools, including the personal protective gear they wear. So we thought we'd do something about that. So we did an emergency Ebola design challenge. We brought together everyone at this fine university, wide range of expertise. About 100 people showed up, and really we spent 3 intense days brainstorming around this problem, dividing the problem into sub-problems. We found out that people are often quite afraid to go to Ebola treatment units because the clothing that the Ebola care workers, they wear is frightening. And there were a lot of rumors and suspicions about these strangers coming here with a strange garb and they're going to do something harmful to us. So it was very important to design something that would make the face more visible. That's kind of hard if you have a breathing apparatus. How do you deal with that? The weather is hot and humid and these goggles would get fogged up. So we spent a lot of time brainstorming on various aspects of this problem. And we had individual teams coming up with ideas. We had enough resources to prototype them. We had people in the field like Dr. Shasha here from JPIGO who works in West Africa and gave feedback quickly to the team saying, that's the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard. That'll never go anywhere. Or that's amazing. I've never seen that before. That may actually work. That's the kind of feedback you need to do good design. And here's a listing of the different expertises that were there in the audience. And here's some drawings of our initial designs. Of course, they've changed a lot since we first started. That's part of our iterative process. One of the things we tried to address is this complexity of all these different parts to the suit. And when there's complexity, there's room for mistakes. And if people put on this gear incorrectly, that could lead to a deadly infection. So we tried to make things simpler, easier to use, while not increasing the cost significantly. Design ways so that passively you can draw in air and reduce the humidity in front of you so you can see clearly. We had some crazy ideas, like can you take, imagine a roll of trash bag can liners? Can you cut them in a certain way and seal the edges so that you can have a whole roll of quick disposable Ebola suits? So when there's an outbreak, you can just drop one of these, 100 of them, into a village and have people have some degree of protection. Or can you isolate the patient instead of isolating the doctor and put the patient in some sort of pup tent where you can treat them? And we won an award, and usually in the world of design, that's the end of the story. But in our case, that was just the beginning of the journey. We went after that to Guinea, to Conakry, at the heart of the Ebola epidemic region, and we visited Ebola treatment units, discussed our designs with people at the front lines, got incredibly valuable feedback, like that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life, or that's incredible, let's do that. And we were able from there to iterate our design and improve on it, and we're still in the process of doing that, and soon we'll finalize that and transfer it to a manufacturer to make into a real product. We also have a wide range of other products, from surgical tools to monitoring tools, etc., training tools for midwives to know when is the right time to do a C-section or do a vacuum-assisted delivery. Tools like this for cryoablation of the cervix. We take a very expensive device that costs thousands of dollars and requires a lot of resources and technicians to make it work, which won't work in an area like, let's say, sub-Saharan Africa. So our students visited clinics, and they found that there's a lot of women would come to a clinic and get diagnosed that she has some sort of precancerous lesion on the cervix. And instead of getting treated right away, the equipment would fail or was unavailable, and so there was a need for a way to treat in a very low-cost, effective manner that can be done right there on the spot. So the team came up with this device called the CryoPop, which is easier to use, lower cost, and just as effective. So just to conclude, I'd like to say that in designing these healthcare challenges, it really started with getting outside of our comfort zone and going to where the problem exists and really doing a deep dive into what are some of the core essential elements of a successful solution. The same is true if you're designing your path in life. You really, if you take some time and look at what are your core values? In my case, it's faith and family and resources and having an impact. And you say, how can I make sure that as I design my path in life, I make sure I pay attention to all of these issues in a way that leads me to not neglect any of them. So at the end of the day, I have a solution which is effective and robust and really works for me. So I'd like to just say design is a journey. It's a journey of discovery and of development. And I think the principles of design can be applied whether you're solving a healthcare challenge or designing your path in life. Thank you very much.